Hello, everyone, and welcome to the sharing group. Today's lesson of A Course in Miracles is lesson 79. And lesson 79 states, let me recognize the problem so it can be solved. Let me recognize the problem so it can be solved. And I'm going to read a little of this for y'all because it's so appropriate to today's guest. It reads, a problem cannot be solved if you do not know what it is. Even if it is really solved already, you will still have the problem because you will not recognize that it has been solved. This is the situation of the world. The problem of separation, which is really the only problem, has already been solved. And y'all, as always, the lesson is applicable to the experience and message that my next guest has. Serumaga had an NDE and now shares the wonderful experiences she had that speaks to our oneness. Thank you so much for joining the show. We are so excited to have you.
Thank you so much for asking me.
Yes, absolutely. So you can just start with your NDE and we'll go from there.
Okay. Well, as we were just previously talking, the whole event that I had was so rich, so complex, but I'm going to speak to the parts that resonate with the message that you shared from A Course in Miracles and about the connectedness. So just in summary, what happened with me was in 2015, I had a near-death experience. I went in for an infection, was being treated, it was starting to get better, and then something happened that shouldn't have. And then I crashed. My oxygen dipped. I remember being wheeled to the ICU. I think I was blacking in and out because, all I heard was, how they have that, the code. And I didn't realize the code was for me. And I remember a few times asking the nurses, is that code for me? Is that code for me? And then things were black. So I think I was going in and out. And so things unfortunately got worse. I became, they had to induce me because my organs started failing. I became septic. My CO2 level, talking about A Course in Miracles, my CO2 level, our normal CO2 is supposed to be a maximum of 35. Mine was over 200, which means that I had nothing almost but CO2 in my lungs.
Wow.
Being on life support, the life support does everything for your organs. And I remember my daughter telling me how she would see the pink foam filling up in the artificial lungs because it was pulling that out of my lungs and circulating it back, and it would just keep filling back up again. My organs were in, if you think about it, they were in a death process. The cells were dying off rapidly. And, there was at one point they were talking about giving me not only a lung transplant, but kidney dialysis because my kidneys were failing. But I wasn't a candidate because in general, my whole body was dying. So during that time, I went in and out of my body. And if anybody knows anybody who's been in the hospital, this is kind of an experience that automatically happens. I had 3 guides that would guide me. I would just go out of my body when I don't know what the prompt was at that time for me to do that. It could have been maybe there was something uncomfortable. Maybe I was starting to feel something and I would just leave, So anyway, I went out of my body several times. One of the times that I traveled, I went to space, for example. I remember seeing things from like first person, like an orb, where I looked down and I didn't have a body, but I could see out and I had conscious awareness of myself, knowing that I'm me. And, but when you're in other and on the other side, or you're traveling like that astrally, your mind also automatically expands. So
Mm.
when people die, they don't necessarily, say, oh, this isn't supposed to be this particular way or whatever.
Mhm.
Things automatically, your mind, if depending on the place that you're in, mentally, spiritually, whatever, your mind automatically adjusts. So when I was in space, I wasn't thinking, this is weird. Why am I in space? This is not a normal thing. And I saw nebula, things were peaceful and beautiful. I traveled to another planet and I was observing. My guide was showing me that there was intelligent life and other planets and other species. So we watched a particular species for a little while, observing. A few of them saw me, but they didn't seem phased. So I got the impression that they knew about humans. Um, and so, and then I traveled, one of the times that I traveled, one of my guides said to merge with the tree. So I was told to merge with several different types of organisms or life forms. The tree, I merged with the fish, I merged with the lily. And the reason why my guides were telling me that is because I was experiencing in the travels connection with the Akashic records, or AKA the book of life, and instead of being told by long words, this is this way and long explanations, I was just placed in experiences so that I could experience that thing and learn by osmosis, through experience instead of through words. So my guide said few words, but they would just say like merge. And then I would be with, for example, the fish. And then I would feel what a fish feels like and understand. And the whole point was for me to experience love from different perspectives and to understand that all things in nature are conscious. They have conscious awareness. They're not just things for us to abuse and to exploit or whatever. So um, that's one of those were just a few of the things that I experienced, but I also experienced things based on my questions, things that I had always wanted to know, even before this whole experience happened. I always said, when I die, I want to find out what's really going on over here and there in the world. I want to know the back room, and the secrets and things like that. And so again, my guides, by few words, but kind of showing the experience, placed me into different things that were happening in the world, which were not so comfortable, which were not so, so nice. And I was able to see different things that happened or were going to happen either in our dimension or an alternative outcome in a different dimension of things that were happening in our world. So the whole experience, of course, was, at the time, I didn't always know and understand what I was seeing, but, I kind of, it's kind of like baptism by fire. You're thrown into it and then you figure out and the pieces start to come together. And even some things, even after my event, years later, I'm still getting and understanding certain things because I saw things that hadn't yet happened or hadn't been experienced. So I had no context, you know? So I, as time went on, I started to see different things happening. So,
Wow, wow. I'm just like, I'm over here like shouting, like I'm just like, wow, this is so exciting. Your whole experience is so exciting. And I just cannot wait. There are a few things you said I have to know. I have to know.
okay.
First of all, I've heard you say, I know you had 3 guides.
Hmm.
Heard you say that 2 guides you did not see, but one showed up looking like your daughter,
Right. Hmm.
and that you believe that it tethered you here. And I
Right.
just had the guest right in front of you. When he crossed over, he said he thought it was a nurse, a lady who was in the back of the room when he was like flatlining, and she was just like scared, or just so like worried for him, and he so bad wanted to tell her it's okay, I love this, I'm fine, but he believes that that tethered him back, because otherwise we would have no desire to really come back, right?
Yes, this is true. As with many parents, my daughter is my heart and soul. And one of my guides looked like her. And it explained to me, see, when I went into my coma and I had my near-death experiences, I didn't know that I was as sick as I was. So the transition was very subtle. Even though I was seeing and experiencing a lot of bizarre things,
Mm.
things were very subtle. So I didn't know each time that I was literally dying.
Mm.
So when I saw her on the other side as one of my guides, I just thought, well, she's kind of quiet. She wasn't saying a whole lot. But again, my mind was just accepting, you
Wow.
know,
Wow.
it wasn't questioning. And
Wow.
I understood afterwards that my daughter was that guide appeared as my daughter to tether me and anchor me to the world to keep me fighting, or else I would not have stayed around.
Wow, that I think that is really incredible. That's it's love, right? It's love that anchors us here.
Right. And it's love is the meaning for why we're here on earth. We decided these, and I'm speaking from some of the things that I've learned and come to understand.
Mhm.
So not, some people may agree or disagree, but I'm just speaking from what I understand and what I've learned through this experience. We've come to this earth, and we chose to come here so that our souls could be refined and we could learn how to experience love for all things, including ourselves, because we are all connected. So just like you were sharing
Mhm.
that the problem is already solved, it's a non-problem.
Yeah.
We are already connected. And, I'm tethered to you, you're tethered to somebody else. We're all tethered together. And in another podcast, I explain that we're kind of like a mycelium network. So even though we have different expressions, mycelial network is mushrooms and their connectedness under the ground. So even though we have different expressions, we grow differently, we feel differently, things like that, in the big scheme, we're a big spiritual organism together, and we are connected. So, and even the people that we really struggle with, we're connected to. So it's a lot to embrace.
Yeah, that you are absolutely right. You're absolutely right. We are connected to them that we struggle with, and that relationship, that interaction has purpose. It just as
Exactly.
well. Absolutely, that is so cool. So I have to ask you, Elle. I have to ask you, what was your experience as a tree? How did it feel to connect as a tree?
I have a whole different respect for trees. I love trees
Wow.
before, but now it's like they are royal. to me because they are not only conscious, they have an expression. So they have thoughts, they have feelings, but they're very wise, like, older relative, auntie, wise grandma type of energy. And they are here to protect us. They're here to observe our growth. They're going to be here after we're gone, And the reason why they're so still as an intelligent organism is because their frequency is different from ours, and they've been able to master pulling energy from the sun and from water and chlorophyll. And they don't need as much as we do. We need all these types of things that are sensory oriented in order to survive and grow and thrive. They can be still, be under the sun, pull energy from the air, and they can just be and grow. And so they've seen our history and our world for many, many years. They know and understand the truth of our history, of whatever areas that they're in. They're also energetically connected with each other under the ground and in the sky. So they're actually very advanced, and they don't need to speak. They don't need words. They don't need, all these expressions. So I had, in one of my meditations after the fact, I got that there were going to be experiments in the future on them, and whether or not they're conscious, and whether or not, basically trying to pull information from them, the true history, true information, whatever. And then recently I saw, this whole thing came about with the tree challenge, where people were starting to realize that trees actually are conscious and they do respond. And but we're usually too busy to kind of notice all these subtle little things. So I really think that that's where our relationship with trees will go in the future. But being a tree felt very calming and very confident and very, just still, and just very, it's hard to explain, but it's so kind of accepting and, calm. So
yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that with us. Yeah, when I think of a tree, you really kind of think of surrender.
right, that's a great
Yeah,
word for it. It was very
yeah.
surrender.
Just receiving and trusting, like the seasons, It's
Right.
so when I go to the park, I always touch a tree, I don't feel anything,
They
but I
feel
always try to connect. Mhm.
they
Uh,
remember they're on a different frequency.
yeah, yeah.
Expression is different, but they feel you, and they love us.
Mhm.
They're kind of like, oh, those kids.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And that is a great description. Those kids, because we are still with the girl. We try to figure this out. So, just okay, one more thing. So, your experience as a fish.
Mhm.
What was your experience as a fish?
I think everybody should have the opportunity to be a fish at some point. The reason being is because our lives are designed for overthinking, overstimulation, everything. Being a fish, all of the thoughts were very, very simple. Zero thoughts about complex thinking. Everything was so simple. It was just looking and not even having any thoughts about what was being seen. It was just looking and swimming and being around the other fish, and just everything was very in the moment and very present and simple. And that I feel as though as humans, we kind of strive to be that way at some point in our lives. And it's healthy for us to kind of step into that every now and then. But the fish, that's how they operate, is pretty simple. It's just life, nothing more.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Hearing your message, it made me think of a scripture, and I don't know where it is. But to summarize it, it made me think of a scripture in the Bible that says basically that the whole natural world, right? The whole world, the nature itself is waiting on us to wake up. When I heard like the essence of what you were saying, your experience of a tree and just nature, they have this intelligence, they're on a different frequency, they're telepathic, all the things that we're trying to, get to.
Right.
What do you think about that?
Well, I never really was into Native American culture much, or other indigenous things. I wasn't, it just wasn't something that I necessarily explored or thought about, other than the fact that they need to be respected more. Now I understand where their culture is based and where they're coming from. That is the level, and actually higher than what they're doing, but that is a start. The way that the indigenous think, that's really how we're supposed to be. That connection with the earth, that connection with life, that respect and that understanding. And I believe, that at some point we were that way before we became modern and established and lost a lot of some of those grassroots connections. We actually have a lot of abilities within ourselves to connect, a lot of abilities to do what appear to be miraculous things. But it's because of our connection with God that we're able to do those things. And our DNA is already pre-programmed to do those things. But we live in a counter society that makes us not pay attention and distracts us and things like that. So then we have to make the effort on our own to stop the noise and try to explore that. But it's in people's everyday life, it's kind of hard to do that a lot of the times. So
that's what you just said. It's really, that's what I say a lot on this channel, is us not being conditioned into smallness. And you're right that, what we would consider as a miracle is really our natural ability. How can we do that? How can we prevent ourselves from pushing that experience away from us? I really specifically even think about how we raise our children. And I often say, Elle, that, if your child comes to you and say, Mom, I saw an angel, or, whatever, our instinct is to say, oh, you were just, you were just sleepy, or that was just an imaginary friend. And a lot of times it's just that statement that makes children kind of push those abilities away. And so now we're in the process of trying to get that back. So what are some of the ways that, I think you mentioned meditation. What is your meditation practice? And what are some of the ways that we can connect back to the true, essence that we are in terms of our healing abilities and just who we are?
that's a really great question. First of all, I cannot go a day without meditation, especially now with everything that's going on. Meditation is super important for grounding and for perspective. And, being honest, probably I would say probably about maybe an hour, maybe a little more ago, I was super irritated. And you know what I was irritated about? Things going on in the world, you know, My daughter and I were just, I can't believe this is happening and why people, and there are people that are suffering here and there. That was our conversation. Okay. And when you're empathetic, as I am,
Mhm.
as she is, you have to, it's even more important that you have a meditative practice, because the more empathetic you are, you can become really disenchanted with things. I was disenchanted before my near-death experience. And after my near-death experience, I kind of, even though I understood what was going on and I saw the back rooms of the world, I was still maybe not disenchanted, but resigned that all of this is not so important. My daughter, what you just explained, I actually went through with my daughter when she was younger. She, came to me and would say lots of spiritual things. And I just happen to be the type of person who pays attention to that. Okay. So if you're not the type of person who pays attention to that, you need to become that. And especially now, especially if you have young children, these children are different. They're growing up in a different world. They're not going to be fooled by the nonsense going on, and they're not going to be worshiping leadership like, other generations were taught to do. You're to be seen and not heard. You're to do what I say, not as I did. They're not going to buy into any of that. They have minds of their own. And the reason is because there's a natural evolution going on. Even though we have a lot of really negative things happening in the world, it's also shaping the future generations. Gen Z, they are going to be leaders of the future that are more concerned with the people than they are with the power, for example.
Nice.
Gen Alpha, they they are going to pretty much, storm the castle. They are, and this is a evolution that's going on, not only from a cultural perspective, but I believe from a DNA perspective as well. I believe that humans are still evolving. For example, I saw a report a couple of months ago that with children that are being born now, some of them are being born with an extra bone in their legs, and something else that's changed in their physiology that we were not born with. So it was proof that evolution is still taking place. So we need to, all the more reason, we need to be meditative, because we need to not be arrogant.
Mm.
Who can do all of this by themselves? Who knows, who has all the answers just by themselves? How can anybody exist without going to God, going to their soul team, their spirit team, and saying, oh my gosh, I need some help. What do I do? So it's super important to do, and to start teaching the kids that are growing that are growing up now to be more mindful, teaching them meditation, teaching them, not gaslighting them, understanding that there are lots of amazing things that do happen that may not fit into our spiritual or religious boxes, but that they're still real, and being along the ride with them for that.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And I've also heard you say in another interview that a lot of children now are now being born without the wisdom tooth. Without
Yes.
the wisdom tooth.
Mhm.
Yeah. So yeah, like you said, that process of evolution is ongoing. That's incredible.
Mhm. Yes.
Um, I wanted to invite you, and I think this is important for people because we don't know when we have loved ones who go into a coma, right?
Mhm.
Help give us a few tips of how to interact with people who are in a coma, because we don't know what to do. Do they hear me? Do they not hear me? What is your feedback on that?
You just gave me chills asking that question. That came from a divine place. You're the only one who's ever interviewed me who's asked about people in that situation. And I'm so glad that you did, because that doesn't get expressed enough. If you know of somebody who's in a coma, they can 100% hear you. Even if they're not in their body, they can see what you're doing. When I was one of the times I was out of my body, I was in a procedure room. I heard the doctors talking about me and what a grim state, that I was probably not going to make it, blah, blah, blah. And I got angry. I was like, what are you talking about? I'm right here, because I didn't know what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
And anyhow, but I also, there was a church that I used to belong to. And some of the people would come to my room and they would sing to me. And I heard that, at the times that I was in my body, I heard it. I came in to my body and I sat with them and heard them singing.
Wow.
And I had so many people praying for me all over the world, because I have relatives, friends all over the world. And so prayer is extremely powerful.
Mm.
And when somebody's in a coma, don't necessarily give up. It is their choice as to whether or not they're going to come back. I was given less than 1% survival rate. And that's the reason why they didn't do the lung transplant and they didn't do the kidney dialysis, because that is saved for people who have a higher chance of making it. There had to be a lot of advocacy to even, keep going and trying to fight for me. So there was a lot of, personal advocacy, but also a lot of spiritual advocacy going on. So don't ever think necessarily that, don't ever give up on somebody. I was taken off of life support. And I'm correcting this narrative right now, because initially I thought that they there was a refusal to take me off of life support. I only recently found out from a doctor that what happened was that they'd gotten to the point where they could no longer keep me on life support. So what happened is they took me off, and they were going to change me from life support to an oscillator, which is old technology. But with the old technology, you kind of have to, there's still a little bit of fending for yourself that you have to, you have to be breathing, things like that. The doctor was explaining to me, and she's a friend of mine, she was explaining that they saw my O2 go down and down and down as they took me off of life support, and I was crashing. And all of a sudden, I started breathing on my own. The oxygen started going up again. The O2 level started going up again. And then they put me on the oscillator to support that, because it was an indication that I was not done. That is the moment that I believe when one of my guides, I was in a room and one of my guides told me telepathically to stick out my left hand, which I did, and a silver sphere appeared in my left hand. And then from around the silver sphere came a light body of Jesus. And I could see that it was Jesus. You could see it looked kind of like the Shroud of Turin, except it was all light, And I was told that Jesus was with me, that God's love was there, and to be calm, and, everything was going to be okay. And again, I didn't know what was going on. So I was like, okay, sure. A little bit oblivious. And then a light panned around the room from, where Jesus was and the sphere. A light panned around the room, and it was very, very bright, brighter than the sun, formed a tunnel. And I looked at the tunnel and was just still kind of very at peace, and was just, everything was very still. Everything came to a standstill, and was just looking. And then all of a sudden I heard that it was, give her everything she needs and it's not her time. And then the light retracted back and everything retracted. And then that was the last thing I remember before being awake. So when I was kind of like analyzing all of this, processing, I think that time when I was, crashing, that the light, everything was a healing event. It wasn't an event where I was necessarily going to cross over. It was an event to bring healing and to, have me, the doctors kind of needed to see that I was doing something on my own, So, and that was the only way I was going to survive from there on in. Also, the reason why it was a healing event was because people should understand we have cells that die every day, just skin cells, whatever cells. My body was dying every single day. My organs were going to a necrotic stage. So basically, cells were dying, the organs were dying, renal failure, basically.
Mm-hmm.
To go from that to breathing, to getting a little support with the oscillator, to being alive, and my organs completely regenerated. I go to the doctor, just went not just a few days ago. Every time they listen to my back, and they say, oh, it sounds pretty good in there. And I may have some scars, but still, to go from the death where you're literally starting to rot to the fact that your organs are reviving, my kidney has good kidney function. To me, I'm blown away. I'm just amazed at what God does and what the capability, that our God-given capability to regenerate. And that seems miraculous, but that is normal. And we all have that capability to do that.
Oh, girl, you taking me to church. You taking me to church. I'm gonna say something real quick.
Sure.
First of all, hearing your interviews, I'm realizing I concluded hearing your interviews, it sounds like the older technology is more gentle on the body, like the oscillator, as opposed to the new technology that kind of just forces that
Ventilator.
Yeah, but that's just something I kind of. But I've heard you say that God doesn't have a religion.
Right.
And I've heard an NDE strongly say that as well. Like God does not care about our religion, which I think is powerful. Did you have anything else to say about that?
Just basically that from the things that I have learned, God placed us here out of love. We chose to be placed here because we have free will. Some people have asked, is this a simulation? When you ask, is there a simulation? Some people think of simulation because they're thinking of computers. They're thinking of technical simulation. We're not in a computer technical simulation like that. So what I came to understand was that a lot of people misunderstand that. We're not in a technical computer simulation where nothing is real, whatever. Everything is very real because we create our reality on a regular basis. God does not have a religion because God helped all of us to be. God is all of our all of our spirituality and religious expression is an extension of him, her, it. So, so basically, where everything is all,
Mhm.
everything is all.
Mhm.
The main spirituality that we need to have is practicing love. Love doesn't mean that you're just, oh, so you're on a cloud nine every moment of the day, whatever. Love is sometimes angry. Love is sometimes passionate.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's passionately angry. Sometimes love is understanding. Love can also be, is expressions of different things. And that's why I was told that I was placed in all of these other conscious things to learn love from different perspectives, because love is also understanding. Even if you don't agree, even if you don't connect, you're honoring. So when you love, you honor the fact that I don't understand this. I may not even agree with this, but I respect, you
Mhm.
know.
I
So,
love that.
yeah.
I love that because we are all making our way up the mountain,
Mm,
right? And there's
yes.
many, many roads up to the mountain. You know what
Mhm.
I'm saying? So I
Right.
love that. Everything is all,
Yeah.
and if there is an ideology, it is love. That's
And
beautiful.
that being said,
Uh-huh.
another thing that I got was that God does want there to be different religions. If that's the
Okay.
way, it's kind of a compromise with your, say, for example, your toddler. I don't want you to have sugar, but if you eat your vegetables, I'll give you this lollipop.
Mhm.
Okay. It's a compromise.
Mhm.
Preferably no religion, but God sees the benefit in us, in some of the major religions, because they all connect on a few things, love of which is one of them, is the expression of love. And if it's the thing that we need to help ground us and teach us, if a person feels like religion helps them, that's fine. The thing that God doesn't want is for us to debate, argue, kill each other over religion. That is not anywhere near what we're supposed to be doing. And the fact that we have different religions helps us to kind of learn and practice how to honor and respect other things that are different from us without trying to convert other things to our expression, because we all have different expressions. And a part of learning about love and our journey and our purpose of being here is to not want everyone to be the same as us, but to honor all of the differences that everybody has. So, yeah.
That's beautifully said.
Mhm.
That's beautifully said. And that's something you follow, Elle, because I've heard your other interviews and you are very careful to say, look, this is my experience, but I'm not trying to speak for the entire, I love that. That's so cool. So something juicy I want you to talk about real quick, something juicy is I've heard you say we are all ET, extraterrestrial beings. I love this topic. So what and that we were brought here from other planets, which is absolutely resonant
Mhm.
with me. So talk about that a little bit.
So that's one of the reasons why I was shown by one of the guides that there were different species. And I got not only in meditation, but also, through other things, that we're not created by ETs. They're not our God.
Mhm.
All life forms are created by one God.
Mhm.
So a lot of people think, oh, ETs created us and things like that. That's not exactly the story. God created us, but other intelligent life did intervene and helped our evolutionary process
Mhm.
by changing a few things or whatever, quite similar to what we're trying to do with other things now. So we've kind of have that ingrained in us naturally, and that natural desire to do that. It's not saying that that's wrong or right.
Mhm.
In a lot of ways, I feel like some of the things that we're trying to do are not right. But ETs did help us, and we are kind of like a seed bank where we have different expressions of different species. We're kind of like the mutts, the hybrids on this particular planet, and we have different DNA expressions because of that. This is one of the reasons why extraterrestrials find us, our little ratchet planet, so so important. I'm just kidding. Our planet's not completely ratchet.
Oh, yeah.
It's also beautiful.
Yeah.
So, but that's one of the reasons why we're important as a species, is because we are also the little cousins, the unknowing little cousins of some of these other highly evolved races. So
Oh, I've never heard that explained that way, but and when you said that we are not created by extraterrestrials, that definitely feels good. Like when I hear it, it's like, yes, okay, that makes sense, right? There's one source, one, creator, but then they might have had a hand in it here and there. And
right.
I've also heard by non-physical high vibrational beings that extraterrestrials love this planet, not necessarily for us, but they love the plant life. They love the variety of sea life that we have here. And so
Yes.
they find it, they come here often naturally to
Yes.
check it out and research it. And so we're here and really don't even appreciate
We
what
don't
we
appreciate
have here
it.
on this planet.
Yeah, we don't. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're kind of like the teenagers of, of our world and society. We don't know what we have. We barely know and are only just beginning to understand the miracles of our own DNA. I am studying to become a genetic doctor of osteopathy. And that's one of the things that inspired me, was understanding that there are mysteries in our DNA, that there are capabilities that we have just in general life, as far, epigenetics, and to the ability to optimize our health, the ability to be stronger, to do more, to be more in line with frequency and the energy that we're surrounded by, so that we're not draining energy, but we're also helping to support energy, kind of like the trees, you know. So, but we have a lot of that that ET origin, within us. And I do hear a lot of people thinking, or talking about, oh, we were created by ETs. And no, they have a God too, but they're just more evolved. And they helped our evolutionary process by various genetic, manipulations, or genetic influences or whatever, but they're not our God. I think when they came in the past, or maybe even in the present, but definitely in the past, some of our ancestors might have thought they were gods just because they were just so highly evolved, but they're not gods.
I love that. I love that. Real quick, you talked about a worm that's resilient that we actually share.
Oh, tardigrades?
Yeah, yeah. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. I'm not sure if a tardigrade is considered, might be considered a worm. It's definitely an insect, but tardigrades are extremophiles. Extremophiles are different species that can be in a very extreme situations, like hot, cold, and they're still surviving and thriving. Tardigrades can be in space. They can survive in outer space. and, thrive. So we share a percentage of DNA. I don't know the exact percentage, but it's pretty extensive, like somewhere between 70, 80 something percent, um, um, with uh, um, with those worms that you're talking about as well, where that are also extremophiles. They live in the ocean, close to some of the volcanic springs in the ocean. So they're also another form of extremophiles, and we share, I think it's around 88% of our DNA with those worms. Okay. So when biologists study these things, or say we go back to evolution, there's an assumption that we evolved from apes because our DNA, we share a lot of DNA with apes. Well, guess what? We share a lot of DNA with trees. We
Wow.
share a lot of DNA with the worms that I mentioned. We share a lot of DNA with lots of different species that don't seem like they have any connection to us whatsoever. So sharing of DNA to me is not mutually exclusive of evolving from that thing. It means that we all came from a similar source. So what is that source? So that is the question.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And I understand, Elle, that we are in rapid evolution now. Was it
Mhm.
you that talked about that the dystopian period is now and that we're evolving out of that?
Yeah, I mean, we are evolving out of it if we continue to want to evolve out of it. So my hope is that, and I and I'm an optimist, my hope is that we are evolving out of it. It appears right now that we're evolving out of it. As frustrating as a lot of things seem,
Mhm.
there's what's happening is a lot of people are becoming aware and becoming fed up with the nonsense, and that's also a part of evolution. That is usually an expression that needs to happen before there's real change. You have to really come to the point where you're done in order to go to the next step, where you see that your fear is not important, your all of these frustrating little things are not important, but what is important is life quality for all, love, those types of things are important.
Yeah.
So a
Yeah.
lot of people are starting to get to that point.
You know what? Yes. Yeah. Um, a lot of us know that being in a high vibration, right? Meditating, being in a high vibration is great for the universe. But I do agree, Elle, there has to be a certain degree of boundaries.
Right.
Right. Because a lot of stuff happens because the collective allows and enables,
Right.
right? And
Mhm.
so that's I love that. That's
Mhm.
really resonant with me when you
Yeah.
say that. And whatever that means. I
Mhm.
always tell people if you see systems in place, don't feed them those systems, those systems that you would not like to continue. Don't feed them your energy, don't feed them your money, don't feed them your time.
Mhm.
Invest in systems uh, in place that you would like to see last, such as
Mhm.
small businesses or even just
Mhm.
community folk, or even organic farms.
Mhm.
Invest in those things.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
because
can do that from a personal perspective. It's just a matter of being authentic. That's
mm,
all it is just, being your authentic self, and not feeling like you have to give in to peer pressures, basically, of various different things. So one of the things I forgot to mention, along with the meditation, that I also came to understand was very important to incorporate in our lives is frequency. that we each have our own frequency, but we also vibrate and resonate with frequencies that are naturally occurring that can help to heal, enhance, open up our bodies and minds. And God is a frequency as well. So it's important for us to kind of explore frequency as well.
That's awesome, because I've heard you and another podcaster venture into music frequency.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And finding the tones that resonate with you. I would love to delve into that myself. And yeah, that's awesome. So real quick, what's your meditation practice, Elle? Do you listen to music? Do you listen to singing bowls? Do you just go silent? What is your meditation practice?
I listen to frequency, and I sit usually on my bed, and I pray for a while, meditate while listening to the frequency. Sometimes I listen to singing bowls. I also have a 528 HZ tuner, and I use that sometimes, where I will hit the tuner and put it close so I can hear the frequency and kind of just meditate through that and what have you. And that's my main meditation practice.
That
So
particular frequency, what was that again?
528 HZ. It's called the God frequency or the love frequency.
Yes, I'm going to invest in that. Wow. So it kind of tunes you into that high vibration.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Very, very nice.
Quiets the mind.
Yes.
Sometimes I actually have frequency on while I'm sleeping. So,
And when you say sometimes you have frequency on. So is that toning? Is that music? What is that?
it's a tone mixed into music. You can go on YouTube and you can Google different frequencies or YouTube different frequencies. So, for example, like sometimes I have residual pain in my joints or whatever, and there have been times where I'll put on the frequency or sleep with it, and I wake up with less pain or things like that. Sometimes it's also happened where I've had on a frequency that was too strong, and when I wake up, I'm more achy, for example, because these are very powerful. We're energetic and magnetic beings because we're predominantly water, and our DNA is responsive to energy. So, sometimes things could be too strong, just like anything else. But, I use frequency not only in meditation, but also, physically too.
This is fascinating. I can talk to you for 2 hours, but I ain't gonna do you like that. I ain't gonna do you like that, Elle. Do you have any lasting words of wisdom before we close out that you wanted to express to the viewers?
I would say that yes, lots of things are crazy right now. Really, there's so many things that need to be done. The best thing to be is to go within and meditate and ground yourself. Like you're in a plane, something's happening, put on your own oxygen mask first before you put on other oxygen masks. And if you have children, now is absolutely the time to guide them and listen to them and understand them and help them to process. Because even when we do that, then it usually helps us as well. And just for us to not panic, work on getting rid of our fear and knowing that everything's going to be okay. So, yeah.
That's beautiful. My daughter literally comes to me and say that. Is everything gonna be okay? I'm like, baby, yes, everything is always gonna be okay. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. if folks wanted to contact you after this, what is the best way that you would like to be contacted if you're open to it?
They can email me at the words less than, and then the number one, and then the word percent spelled out at gmail.com. Or I have a website where people can also reach me. It's the letter U, the letter R, the letter L, 1111.com.
Wow. Okay. Tell us a little bit about your website.
Honestly, it's just different aspects of me where I share about myself. I have up there my speaking engagements or podcasts, and people can make an appointment if they want to talk to me, because I sometimes get questions. People are asking questions, and that's pretty much all it is for right now.
Really cool. I'm glad you mentioned that. That's really cool. Yeah, I'll have that on the screen so folks can check that out. Okay, man, this has been a rich conversation.
Yeah.
There's so much wisdom and experience that you come with, L. Like
Mm.
there's like there your experience is so layered.
Mm.
And I love you know, I just love all the things that how you integrated your love of science and genetics with it. It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Well, I really appreciate interviewing with you. You're a great interviewer, and
Yeah.
I felt very comfortable with our conversation, and it was great talking to you.
Yes, thank you. That was beautiful. So, Elle, I'm gonna read your closing remarks.
Okay.
Um, Elle, as powerful creators, one of our many avenues of manifestation is through sheer curiosity. And this is the case with you. For many years in your life, you wondered about the reasons for our human condition here on this planet. And I find it fascinating that your near-death experience was the very vehicle used to not only answer your questions, but to allow you to experience the answers. But the beauty of your NDE did not stop there. The impact of your experience has been extended through your own courage to share these very dynamic understandings with the world. The impact is within your bravery to invite the collective in, to broaden and expand our own view of not only ourselves, but the entire creation. We all hear that we are one. We hear that all the time. But through your testimony, you help us to integrate that truth through science, genetics, and none other than raw experience. I'm sure it was challenging to shape the words and ideas to convey the groundbreaking epiphanies you acquired while being beyond this dimension. Even in the world of NDEs, your NDE comes with unorthodox ideas and concepts, yet here you are, leading with a heart full of joy and love as you couple your zest for truth with your love of science. I've said all this to say, thank you so much for your courage to extend your experience with us all, because that is what is happening every time you share your dynamic experiences. You extend that wisdom for all of us to consume. And we thank you for this transformational information, Elle. We all are benefiting from your love as we challenge ourselves to go higher in our own thoughts and therefore our own experiences. So thank you for being here on this planet with us. We are all blessed by your presence. Thank you for joining us on the show. And it's just, I'm going to have you on again once you've done your next thing. I don't know what it is, but I want to have you on again.
You just gave me so much with your beautiful words. After this is posted, I'm just going to play that part on repeat. That was so lovely. And I feel like it was from a truly divine place. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And that touched me. Thank you.
I'd love to be on again.
Yes, yes. And so, Elle, we end with the heart. You got a heart. I love it. That's beautiful. Thank you so much. I hope everyone enjoyed, like, y'all got to play this video more than once and get these tidbits. Enjoy this interview and check her out on other podcasters as well. Elle comes with so much wisdom and experience that we that we all benefit from. So thank y'all for watching, and until next time, we love you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.